Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. It's a wet night for many of us, with spells of rain crossing the country, staying cold in the north, and as those spells of rain move north, well, we'll see some hill snow across parts of Scotland. But low pressure well and truly in charge at the moment. One low departing into the North Sea, the next low coming along for tonight, another low on the way for the weekend. That's been named Storm Kathleen by Met Éireann, because the strongest winds will be across Ireland. But it will be a windy night tonight, with outbreaks of heavy and persistent rain, particularly for western hills of Britain at first, and then into Scotland by dawn. That rain through the central belt could cause some issues, and above 250 metres we're going to see some snow building up north of the central belt, and so that could affect some higher routes of central Scotland during the morning, up to 10 centimetres in places. But that does peter out through the morning, and by the afternoon some brighter spells emerge, especially across parts of England and Wales, where there'll also be some heavy showers, and it will stay blustery, although the wind coming from the south will lead to temperatures of 18 Celsius or so across parts of the southeast. In Scotland it stays cold, and it's another wet start for Scotland on Saturday morning. Spells of rain moving north once again, followed by showers, and it's a windy day. Those winds peaking in western parts of the UK at 50 to 70 miles an hour, leading to big waves, leading to disruption in places. But it's also going to be relatively warm, with some brightness by the afternoon, and in the east of England, highs of 20 to 22 Celsius.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
With thanks to Variety Cruises, a family company sailing since 1942, you have the chance to win a £10,000 7-night small boat cruise for two. With flights, meals, excursions and drinks included, you'll be able to choose from any one of their 2025 Greek adventures and explore Greece like never before. Plus, you'll also win £10,000 in tax-free cash to make your summer sizzle. And we'll pack you off with these luxury travel gifts. For a chance to win a prize worth over £20,000, text prize to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or post your name and number to GB04 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 26th of April. Full terms and privacy notice at gbnews.com/win. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
I don't think you can go and watch a Shakespeare play unless you already know it. It's almost like you have to understand the story and the characters, and perhaps have even done a bit of reading into it. Because if you went completely blind, especially in today's world where we don't speak in that kind of way, it is, I think, probably a bit alienating.
But Dawn is saying it is alienating at the moment because of the lack of representation.
You know what, the actual phrasing they use, right, OK, the disproportionate representation propagated white, able-bodied, heterosexual, cisgender male narratives. I'm sure there's people sitting in a room going, what's the most ridiculous thing we can come up with today?
Yes.
But are really just chuck all these words at it, cisgender, and it's just insane. Of course, Shakespeare was what it was back in the day, and that's why it's mostly blokes and they're mostly white.
And lots of speculation that he was actually gay, isn't there? Because he never really saw Anne Hathaway very often and stayed away a lot of the time. I don't know, maybe he was a big
He might have
gay
been transgender for all I know. I mean, I don't...
Biggins, I'm looking at you.
No, I think you're right. I mean, you know, I think that goes for the profession too. I mean, I do think I mean, I remember seeing Macbeth in London with Judi Dench and Ian McKellen, and it was one of the most exciting evenings ever. And it was a cold night at the Donmar Theatre, outside and inside, and that gave it atmosphere. There are certain things that you go along and see something else, and you think, I'll walk out in the interval.
Yeah. Macbeth is a sexy play, though.
Let's talk about, there's so many. Can I live to be 100?
Oh, this is depressing.
I think it is depressing. I like to stay here now. I don't want to live to 100.
Oh, don't say
I'm
that.
right behind you.
I don't even want to. My father died at 63. That'll be me gone this year.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
It's 11 o'clock. You're with GB News. And our top story tonight, Leicester Police have launched an investigation after receiving reports that explicit images and flirtatious messages have been sent to MPs as part of an alleged sexting scam. Earlier this week, it was reported that a number of MPs had been sent emails or contacted by an unknown caller on their phones under the pretence that they had already met. And William Ragg, chairman of a Common Select Committee, admitted to The Times that he did hand over the personal phone numbers of colleagues to a person he met online, but he says he did it because he was scared that the individual or organisation behind the scam already had compromising information about him. The current MP sexting scam is known in tech circles as spear phishing, a type of cyber attack that targets specific groups. Civil servants at the Department of Business and Trade dealing with arms exports have threatened to go on strike after raising concerns over their degree of legal liability if Israel is found to be violating international humanitarian law. It comes after 3 former Supreme Court judges called on the government to stop allowing the sales of arms to Israel. 3 British aid workers, John Chapman, James Henderson and James Kirby, were all killed in an Israeli airstrike on Monday evening. They were working for the charity World Food Kitchen, which has demanded an independent investigation into their deaths. Meanwhile, Israel says it'll adjust its tactics in the Gaza war after killing a total of 7 aid workers in that strike, which its military admitted was a major mistake. Well, US President Joe Biden has told Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu tonight during a phone call that US support for Israel will depend on the steps being taken to address civilian harm and humanitarian suffering in Gaza. Meanwhile, the former Tory minister, Sir Alan Duncan, is being investigated for comments he made which accused 2 Conservative peers of, in his words, doing the bidding of Israel's Prime Minister. Sir Alan served as a Foreign Office minister under Theresa May. He said 2 of its prominent members, Lord Polak and Lord Pickles, should be removed from the House of Lords. It's understood the party has written to Sir Alan to inform him of the investigation. He says the case lacks substance and could prove harmful to the Tories' reputation. And just lastly tonight, darts player Luke Littler enjoyed a dream homecoming in Manchester by winning his 2nd successive Premier League night. The 17-year-old followed up his maiden victory in Belfast last week with another success, this time beating Gerwyn Price in the final. Price had thrown an epic 9-dart finish against Michael Smith in the semi-final, but it wasn't good enough to get past Luke the Nuke, who won 6-3. Our congratulations to him. That's your news. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen right now or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Time now for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, your first look at Friday's newspapers. I'm Andrew Doyle, and joining me on my comedian panel tonight is the ex-primary school teacher Francis Foster. And the reason he left the profession, it's Jonathan Cogan.
No, I told the headmaster it was consensual.
Well, we mustn't get into it because we have other things to talk about tonight. Are you okay, Francis? You well?
Yes, I just want to say that I did touch Jonathan very deeply and he enjoyed it.
Yeah, but you are a very moving individual.
I am.
Yeah, very passionate.
Yes.
Very passionate.
Right, let's open the show by looking at those front pages for Friday. The Daily Mail is running with top Tory, I gave MPs numbers to sex sting plotter. We're going to be getting to that in just one moment. The Times has got senior Tory, I gave MPs numbers to honey trap. This seems to be the theme. The Guardian is leading with Biden demands Gaza ceasefire in strongest rebuke yet to Israel. And the Express is running with, make no mistake, migrant flights to take off soon. The iNews has Sunak urged to publish legal advice on arms sales to Israel. And finally, the Daily Star on Friday is running with, what time is it on the moon? Those were your front pages. Right, so we're going to kick off with our look at Friday's newspapers with the front page of the Daily Mail, and Francis has the details.
Absolutely. So this is a really worrying case. The headline is Top Tory, I gave MPs numbers to sexting plotter. And this is William Ragg, who's chairman of a Common Select Committee, and he told The Times that he handed over the personal phone numbers of colleagues to a man he met on Grindr, a gay dating app.
Yes.
Now, you have to think that this is a man who has been given very, very important information, and as a result of that, he has been trusted to keep it safe. And at the slightest push, he has then essentially just given out state secrets.
I mean, I suppose what he should have done is gone to the police straight away and say, I'm being blackmailed by this individual, because it sounds like blackmail to me. It
is blackmail, absolutely.
They presumably had details on him or pictures of him or whatever it might be. But the thing is, it reminds me a little bit about the old days, you know, when the KGB would go after gay men specifically because they had something to hide. Here it's to do with, obviously, sexual material and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
On the other hand, Jonathan, is it not the case that we should feel sorry for people who are exploited because of their sexual nature, because of their sexuality?
Absolutely. I mean, although this MP seems to have been, you know, tricked and given up the information, you know, at the slightest sort of threat, I feel sorry for him. He's a victim here. But MPs seem to be very vulnerable to cyber attacks because, you know, if you have all this information in your phone, anyone can be you know, attacked, and the data can be, you know, salvaged. But
I mean, isn't the moral of this story just don't send your details out to people on Grindr?
Look, I'm going to be honest with you. Look, I don't feel sorry for him. The point is that as an MP, you should be very careful. Number one, with the way that you conduct yourself, and also if you are being blackmailed, don't give out valuable information.
No, I think we can all agree that was completely wrong, but I think we can also understand that there is a kind of human weakness when it comes to sexuality.
Of course.
You know, and MPs are human as well, and this is why you always get these. Well, no, they are robots. Sorry, I forgot about that. Well, cyborgs at the very least. But you know, it's always that, isn't it? It's always sex scandals that bring people down. You know, some of the greatest people in history, it's always been about sex. Oscar Wilde, for instance, falling in love with someone who was absolutely talentless, but Wilde thought he was amazing. You know?
I mean, Bosie. What a waste of space that man was.
Exactly, although very beautiful.
Yeah.
So, Jonathan,
that's what counts.
You've got some sympathy.
I do have some sympathy. I've seen the pictures, and he deserves all the sympathy we can give him.
Yeah. Very interesting. OK, well, we're going to move on to the Express now. The front cover of the Express. Jonathan, what are they running with?
Make no mistake, migrant flights to take off soon. So every loophole is being closed to foil any attempt at blocking migrant flights to Rwanda, a Home Office source has revealed. Right. So this has been a very controversial issue for the Conservatives. There's been people within the party arguing about it, and obviously it's not been a popular policy with a lot of people in the country. Obviously, what we're talking about here are the flights to Rwandans for migrants, but it seems like they're really trying to give it the best shot they can now, and they're really going to try and push through with it.
Yeah, but what about the European Court of Human Rights?
Well, yeah, Rishi said he's actually going to pull out of it, I do believe.
Yeah, so this is the thing. I would say, Francis, that surely we shouldn't be in this European Court of Human Rights in the first place. I mean, I know that we started it back in the day, and I know this predates the EU and all the rest of it, but I would say that ultimately we don't need to be beholden to some judges in Strasbourg when all of the top legal executives and authorities and the High Court in the UK said we are perfectly entitled. Now, by the way, I don't think the Rwanda plan is a good one.
No.
But what I'm concerned about democracy. I'm concerned about the idea that we're outsourcing that decision-making to judges that none of us elected. We don't know who they are. None of us would be able to name them.
It's like 2016 all over again.
Isn't it just? I want to bring those days back.
Yeah, exactly.
That went well.
Yeah, it went perfectly. Look, the reality is that the reason that people voted for Brexit is because they wanted the country to be in charge of making the rules and enforcing their laws.
Number one reason.
Sovereignty.
Number one, yeah, sovereignty. That, and we don't like them, get them out. Right?
We're trying.
That was me. That was me in my racist voice. But the reality is we are not in control of our borders. And if that is a very damning indictment of a country, because if a government and if a nation is not in control of its borders, then what actually is it in control of?
Yes. Well, they have talked about other places rather than Rwanda. Rwanda seems to be the tipping point. A lot of people aren't happy about the location. They did talk about the Hebrides at one point, didn't they?
Is that why they're setting a time zone for the moon?
Well, maybe the moon would be quite a nice place.
No.
Although, you know, but billionaires pay a fortune to get to the moon. This would be something that...
It'd be Elon and a bunch of displaced migrants.
But, you know, it is a tricky one, isn't it, Jonathan, just in terms of the democracy issue, is that do we just pull out of the court or do we just go against what their wish is? I mean, also, does it matter? I mean, Sunak's taking a tough stance on this. A bit late?
Yeah.
Why wasn't this done before?
It's a bit of a Hail Mary, I think. But if we were to pull out of the Human Rights Court, what would the European Court of Human Rights, what would happen? Would there be gaps in our...
Yeah, we'd be really suddenly terrible on human rights and just be awful. No, of course not. This is this bizarre idea that we need foreign judges to tell us what human rights are. We're pretty good at knowing what human rights are. I think we could probably establish it ourselves.
No, absolutely. What it shows is that people voted for Brexit, but actually untangling ourselves from Europe is going to take much longer than initially thought. And part of the reason is because there's lots of people in the civil service who vehemently disagreed with Brexit, and as a result, it hasn't really worked.
Yeah, and people say, well, the court isn't part of the EU, but the point is, it's a principle. The principle is identical, you know, which is that we need to be able to be in control of ourselves. That's how
self-determination
work. Absolutely. OK, let's move on to the front cover of Friday's Guardian. Francis, what is their lead story?
So this is to do with Biden demanding the Gaza ceasefire and strongest rebuke yet to Israel.
I presume this is in the wake of the deaths of the aid workers.
Yes, so 7 aid workers were tragically killed. The IDF itself has actually admitted that this has been a very, very, very terrible mistake that is going to be investigated. And whenever things happen, and particularly when it comes to war, there's always certain incidents where people's minds are changed almost overnight, and this is one of them.
It's a bit like when those hostages were killed as well. That sudden seismic moment of, like, actually, this can go very wrong. You know?
Yes, and I think that what this shows is that Israel is losing the PR war now, because as the casualties have mounted in Palestine, there have been people on either side, you know, obviously the people saying that this is unacceptable, people who are on the pro-Israel side going, look, this is war, there are obviously going to be casualties. But with this particular incident, I think most people are looking at it and going, this is utterly indefensible.
My understanding, though, is that in terms of public opinion in Israel, and I know there's a lot of sentiment against Netanyahu, he's not a popular leader at the moment over there, but a lot of the general consensus seems to be, we have to get this finished, Hamas has to be wiped out, it's going to get ugly, particularly in these final stages, but that the worst thing that the IDF could do at this moment is to withdraw. So it's now, Jonathan, going to be about just being far more careful when it comes to these kinds of events, right?
For sure. Well, I mean, care should always be taken with this kind of thing. These are human lives that are getting, wasted and obliterated. I mean, obviously, I agree that Hamas does need to be absolutely taken care of, but at the same time, I do worry that with all this war and all these casualties, are we just creating future terrorists that people are going to be hating?
Well, they lost family. This is the age-old thing, you know. Every time you kill a terrorist, you create 10 more. I mean, this is what people...
Can't we all just get along, Andrew?
Well, that's what I believe, obviously, you know, but we don't get our way always, and there are some very unpleasant people out there, aren't there?
It's a mess.
It is a mess. We're not going to solve that tonight. We're going to move on, however, to this story, the front cover of the Daily Star. We covered a bit of this the other night about the moon. There's a lot of obsession about the moon. But, the Daily Star will always run a story if they have an excuse to use the word boffins.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it uses the word boffins in the second paragraph of this story. What are the boffins saying?
Well, they're leading with, what time is it on the moon? Well, that's what the Daily Star is saying. But this is actually a really kind of interesting, quirky story. So the White House sent a request to the space agency, NASA, asking it to come up with a new time for the moon called Coordinated Lunar Time, LTC. Now, this is actually really interesting because of the gravitational pull on the moon due to its mass and size.
Yeah, you can jump really high.
Well, you can, but time actually goes slightly faster.
Yes.
Because there's less gravity there.
And they're going to have to do this because they are talking about getting to the moon again.
Yeah.
And,
but this is so cool. This is it's not every day you see, a new actual time zone being created. This is
quite exciting. Yeah. Yeah, and it's the Daily Star breaking it. What do you
think, Francis? Well, look, we all know that the Daily Star are passionate about astronomy.
Yes.
And, and so are their readers.
And astrology, to be fair to them. They'll do the whole lot.
Both. And so it is actually a very interesting story, and not one that I anticipated or thought the Daily Star would be breaking.
They just wanted to put the clever picture of the moon as a clock on the front.
Oh, I just got
That's
it.
all it was about, really.
Yeah.
OK, that's the front pages dealt with, so join us in part 2 for the latest on J.K. Rowling and Humza Yousaf, and the NHS asking their patients to provide their own kit. See you in a couple of minutes.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
I believe our farmers can compete globally. If I visit some Somerset farmers, they are extremely efficient and highly competitive and innovative, and we need to encourage the best.
And it's a high-end product.
It's a high-end product.
Which was one of the points that was being made earlier.
And that we have to focus on what we are good at. And what our protectionism does at the moment is protects Irish beef farmers, French beef farmers and Dutch beef farmers, as opposed to buying cheaper beef from Australia. I have no desire
Jacob,
to protect EU farms.
Is that we live in the Northern Hemisphere and we have a very difficult climate. So actually, and we know this because when the Corn Laws were repealed in 1846, we know darned well what happened to agriculture.
It led to cheap bread. It made the society much better off.
This has been an argument going on for 150 years.
It's simply wrong. British agriculture didn't collapse at that point. There was a glut in the market 30 years later, which comes much after the Corn Laws.
Well, obviously, things were much slower in those days. It took a long time for that to impact.
Actually, do you know what? The principles of that debate and this debate are not dissimilar.
No, that's
They're
right.
not dissimilar.
It's very, very... I always go on about the Corn Laws. It's my favourite subject.
No. And it was a wonderful upwelling and grassroots campaign and all the rest of it. But whether we have a Conservative or a Labour government, do you actually think that a Labour government will be any closer or more connected to your community than this Conservative one?
The Labour government, it's in their interest to make sure that Britain has got food. And with the way the world is right now, we're in a very fragile situation, which is why we need food security. And every farmer I know talks about food security because we understand how much less food is being
We better have a look at net zero commitments too, but another time.
Net zero commitments it'll be wind farms.
Enough. We can argue all night about this.
Let's do it. I'm up for arguing all night.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, your first look at Friday's newspapers. With me, Andrew Doyle. I'm still here with my best of friends, Francis Foster and Jonathan Cogan.
We all get along.
We all get along very, very well. You'd be surprised.
Do.
You would be surprised. We're going to begin this section with the Telegraph, Francis. And at your age, this really shouldn't concern you.
No, no, I'm absolutely delighted. Let's send the young ones to war, and I can be sitting here eating biscuits.
Yeah, sounds good.
And yeah, absolutely, and dating the women who are left over. Now, so the UK should consider Sweden-style selective conscription system.
So how do they do it in Sweden then?
So this is how it works in Sweden. It's the Swedish government, theoretically, has the power to compel people to give their service one way or another, but doesn't exercise it except in areas where it's really needed. So basically, the Swedes can do it, they choose not to.
Right.
And what has happened is, over the years, our government have reduced funding in the military year after year after year.
Yes.
And now, as we have gone from being a unipolar world where America is essentially the policeman of the world, to now a world where you have Russia and China, etc., etc. Suddenly we realise that we need an army, but because a lot of the kids are woke and don't really believe in the sovereign nation, and we believe that we're a hotbed of white supremacy, why are they going to fight for us? So we're going to need to conscript them.
We probably will. I mean, I think, you know, Swedes make fine warriors. I've seen a few Scandinavian warrior films, and they're, you know, they're elegant with it.
And they are.
You know. And I would suggest that actually conscription could be a good thing for the youths. No, you don't agree?
Well, I don't know. It always makes me feel a bit uneasy. I would actually like to do basic training just to be a bit competent in some things.
Yes.
I think, you know, get in shape, learn how to...
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, you're not really... You can't do that sort of thing. You're not much of a man, are you, John?
Not, you know what? I can gaslight and I can slowly poison people, but that's it.
Yeah, but the thing is, there is a good argument for conscription insofar as if everyone had to send their child to war at some point, then the politicians wouldn't recklessly send us to war. I mean, that seems like quite a good argument. And also, you know, there's a lot of layabouts, aren't there?
Well, actually, there were apparently thousands and thousands of people who've applied to the armed forces but have been turned away. That was a story we did a few weeks ago because of admin.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think people are applying. They're just not.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of people that I could think of that would make really good cannon fodder. Yeah. You know, let's just deal with it.
Just say Paul Cox is fine.
I would be wonderful in a war.
Who? Paul Cox would be wonderful.
Paul would be good as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be fighting. I'd be in a tent directing the battle.
No,
you'd be directing the play.
No,
I'd have like all my little plastic men. I'd be moving them around a board, saying, we must bring the second front in there. General.
No, I imagine you'd be there writing poetry.
I'd be writing poetry and doing martial arts. Let's not forget.
Cannons to the left of me.
Kung Fu.
Did you?
Oh, yeah, I was Blue Sash. Anyway, let's move on to the Daily Mail now. J.K. Rowling and Humza Yousaf are in the middle of another skirmish. I hope there's no hate speech going on.
Well, I know a certain red monster who'd be very upset if there was.
The hate monster.
Who we have now.
No, we don't.
No,
we don't.
He refused to. We couldn't afford him.
No, he's expensive. He got injured in the last outing, I hear.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the headline is J.K. Rowling unleashes brutal war of words with Humza Yousaf over Scotland's new hate crime laws. Author slams SNP leaders, bumbling incompetence and illiberal authoritarianism after he called her trans tweets upsetting and offensive.
You've got to love how J.K. Rowling is full-on committing to this. She's like... Damn you, I mean, she's really going for
on the day one. She made all those tweets.
Yes.
No, this is really kind of the issue of the day. We've talked about this at great length, but yeah, it's very interesting now because the good news is that her tweets, although reported 2,000 times or something.
Yeah, so I think, no, there's been 6,000 reports for hate speech since the law started. There were 4,000, almost 4,000 on the first day. A lot of them to her, but Humza Yousaf beat her. There were more complaints about Humza Yousaf's speech, about there being too many white people in Scotland, too many white people in a 96% white country. What do you think of this?
Do you know, there is nothing more depressing to me than the fact that the SNP have brought in legislation which effectively criminalises performance and stand-up comedy. And you look at Scotland. Scotland, a couple of years ago, had the highest death rate since 1952.
Yes.
It's schools, education. Scotland had the best education at one point in the United Kingdom. That no longer exists. Their health outcomes are terrible. The addiction rate in Scotland is abysmal. And yet, Humza is focusing in on this.
Yeah, comedians are the problem.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I've been to the Edinburgh Festival. They're not comedians, mate. I mean,
no, some of those comedians should be arrested for different reasons.
Yeah, exactly, for crimes against comedy.
Could it not be that, you know, from what I know of the SNP, and I've seen a lot of it, I've invited SNP people onto my show and they won't turn up.
You had one dude on, he was nuts.
He was an SNP former councillor, not an SNP politician.
Oh, low ranking.
But they're humorless. Maybe that's the problem.
No, do you know what it is? And it's the fact that they're petty little authoritarians.
Yeah, of course.
And you can see this by the fact that Humza Yousaf wanted to criminalise speech in the home.
Yes.
He wanted to arrest people and potentially put them in jail for things they said in their home. Now, if that is not Stasi-like, I don't know what is.
Of course it is. I mean, we are dealing with... The SNP has always been an authoritarian party. It's part of who they are. So what do we do about it? The problem is, as well, you have a one-party state in Scotland. So there isn't really a solution. There isn't really an effective opposition. However, latest polls are saying Labour...
Labour can do well, I think.
But then, you know, Labour are pretty authoritarian themselves, and there's a very good chance that the Labour Party in England will introduce a similar legislation when they get in.
Well, this is all good news.
Oh, for goodness sake.
You'd look great in a prison outfit, Andrew.
Do you know what? I could pull that off, but I don't want to go back to that hellhole. That's the first thing. And also, I don't want to have to give up comedy, but maybe I will have to.
No, do you know, it's an exciting time for comedy.
Yeah.
Because comedy will now be dangerous, it will now be underground, it will now become clandestine.
It's dangerous again, isn't it?
It is, it's exciting.
Yeah. OK, well, we're going to move on now to this story. This is in The Guardian. This is about the Tories' True Blue app. What does that mean?
Well, Tories are going to Tory, unfortunately. So Tories plan to make millions from members' data with True Blue app. So senior Conservative Party officials worked on plans to hand over, listen to this, its entire membership database for a commercial venture that promised to make tens of millions
for the party.
Yeah, for the party.
Yeah, but you know, everyone's harvesting our data, Francis. You know, we may as well just give it all up at this point. There are no secrets in the modern world.
No,
I use incognito mode.
Yeah, I just think that this, when you think the Tory party couldn't have sunk any lower, they have been in power for 14 years and they have been useless. They've had 5 prime ministers, each as useless as the last. And now you think they can't sink any lower. Oh, yeah, they're basically flogging their members' important data.
Well, they've already alienated all of their members and supporters, so why not go the whole hog?
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably thinking in for a penny at this point. Might as well make a few bucks.
Well, there's already an app with all the Tories on. Grindr. Wait. Well, look, they've got to make money. They've got to do what they do. Like you say, Tories gonna Tory. It's too late for them.
Yeah. It's all over.
It's all over.
They might be completely obliterated the next election. I mean, these polls are really, really damning, you know?
You know, well, I interviewed Liz Truss yesterday.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah, on trigonometry, and...
she seems like a nice woman.
She does. She's a nice woman, and I asked her about, do you think you're going to get re-elected? And she just looked at me and went, it's going to be difficult.
OK, well, that's an understatement.
Which was the biggest laugh of the entire interview. Look, the Tory party is going to be absolutely obliterated in the general elections, and they deserve to be.
OK, Francis being very forceful there. But let's move on now to the Times. And the NHS apparently has shares in Duracell.
Oh, yeah, well, this story actually hits home because my girlfriend always needs more batteries, and I can't work out why. Patients told to bring their own batteries for GP tests.
You need to go to the gym more, mate.
Yes, that's right. Right, so yeah, this is a story about Marden Medical Centre near Tonbridge in Kent that sent a text to patients reminding them to bring their own Duracell AA batteries when they were getting a electrocardiogram or a 24-hour blood pressure test. So basically, the reason why they asked them for this is because the machines need a pack of batteries, which cost £4.
Yes.
And they don't want to pay it, so they've asked the public to bring their own batteries.
We should emphasise, Jonathan, that you have to use fresh batteries every time you do a new scan.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the machines don't work properly. So it's not like they're just like, Nick, give us some help with your batteries. It is like, it's costing £4 a time in batteries.
Yeah, but you have to use a new pair of rubber gloves every time you do.
They're slightly cheaper.
Somebody. They are slightly cheaper.
Look, listen, what happens with you and the missus, mate?
Well, look, let's not get into Jonathan Cogan's sex life because this is a pre-war.
But it's non-existent.
Yeah.
Now, tell me, Francis. I mean, I do have sympathy insofar as the NHS is, I think, underfunded.
Yes.
I think they do, and I know that there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of bureaucracy. A lot of people sue the NHS when they don't need to. You know, so there's all of that expenditure going on. But I also think if there's anything we can do to help, then maybe we should.
I take no joy and no pleasure at seeing that the state that the NHS is in. There are some people on the right who seem to love bashing the NHS and seem to love pointing the fingers at it and saying this is failing and X, Y and Z. I find these stories tragic because as somebody who grew up and spent a large part of time in a country where there was no socialised healthcare, we're really lucky to have it.
We are, aren't we? And I think you're right. But I think sometimes people do knock the NHS in a sense because they like it, because they want it to do better.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
And what it does is very important. And, we shouldn't underestimate. You try living in America and being poor and getting sick, you're done for, basically.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And, my mum's from South America. If you're poor and you can't afford healthcare, you're going to die.
But to the issue, should we be bringing our own batteries for the scans?
I don't know.
Is this the best way to save the money, in other words?
No, it's not.
It's probably not the best PR.
And also, if you don't bring it, then they just give you them anyway.
Yeah.
So, don't tell people that.
But, however, it's understood that patients who do not bring their own batteries are provided with some for free.
Yeah, but, Jonathan, now that you've said it, no one's going to ignore what he just said.
Yeah.
Bring your own batteries, people. Help them out. OK, time for a break now, but join us shortly when we'll be discussing cake, fat jeans and takeaways. Don't go anywhere. Hello again. It's a wet night for many of us, with spells of rain crossing the country, staying cold in the north, and as those spells of rain move north, well, we'll see some hill snow across parts of Scotland. But low pressure well and truly in charge at the moment. One low departing into the North Sea, the next low coming along for tonight, another low on the way for the weekend. That's been named Storm Kathleen by Met Éireann, because the strongest winds will be across Ireland. But it will be a windy night tonight, with outbreaks of heavy and persistent rain, particularly for western hills of Britain at first, and then into Scotland by dawn. That rain through the central belt could cause some issues, and above 250 metres we're going to see some snow building up north of the central belt, and so that could affect some higher routes of central Scotland during the morning, up to 10 centimetres in places. But that does peter out through the morning, and by the afternoon some brighter spells emerge, especially across parts of England and Wales, where there'll also be some heavy showers, and it will stay blustery, although the wind coming from the south will lead to temperatures of 18 Celsius or so across parts of the southeast. In Scotland, it stays cold, and it's another wet start for Scotland on Saturday morning. Spells of rain moving north once again, followed by showers, and it's a windy day. Those winds peaking in western parts of the UK at 50 to 70 miles an hour, leading to big waves, leading to disruption in places. But it's also going to be relatively warm, with some brightness by the afternoon, and in the east of England, highs of 20 to 22 Celsius.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. It's your first look at Friday's newspapers. And Francis, this is a story close to my own heart. What's it about?
Well, you are wearing an orange tie, Andrew.
Yeah, but that has nothing to do with it.
Oh, it's a dog whistle. It's a dog whistle.
Yes, well, we know where you stand, mate. We know what side your bread's buttered on.
Okay. Orange.
Yes. But anyway, so this is a story from the Emerald Isle. So a new study reveals eye-watering costs of United Ireland. A Dublin think tank estimates United Ireland would cost as much as 20 billion euro, 17.15 billion a year for 20 years.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, particularly when you look at the amount that is generated in Ireland. It's around 10% of the GDP. And because what people forget when it's Northern Ireland, it's one of the most deprived parts of the UK.
And people have often said it's a bit of a white elephant and it wouldn't benefit the South to, you know, reclaim it, if you like.
Oh.
But on the other hand, Jonathan, you're going to give the Republican argument here?
Well, the Republican argument is that... Well, the thing I found most interesting about this article...
Yes.
We'll get to that. Is that it said that the cost of unification could be reduced if Northern Ireland makes changes to its economy to boost productivity, according to the report. That's so passive-aggressive. It's like if they tried harder, But the other side of the argument is, Andrew...
Well, ultimately, isn't this, it's not about money, it's about the principle. Again, it comes back to the Brexit thing. A lot of people with Brexit voted to leave knowing that we might be worse off financially, but that there was a principle of sovereignty going on. Similarly, I think a lot of the Republicans in Northern Ireland won't mind that it's going to cost them more money in the long run because they are seeing the goal of a united Ireland, ultimately.
Absolutely. However, there is principle and then there is financial ruin.
There's that. There's also the risk, of course, of an inflammation or resurrection of the Troubles.
Yeah,
I'm sure the loyalist paramilitaries won't be too happy about this. I mean, if it does go that way, and it looks like ultimately it is stepping that way. But, I think actually possibly United Ireland is in the interests of everyone.
Yeah. Well, look, I personally think that Ireland, eventually it would be a good thing for it to be united.
But we should acknowledge the strength of feeling from the unionist community. Who,
do you think it's still there?
Oh yeah, are you kidding?
Yeah, fair enough.
Oh yeah, I mean look at the debates over Brexit and what went on with Theresa May's fudging of that issue and effectively putting a customs border down the middle of the Irish Sea. Wow. I mean, when I was in Belfast around that time, and the graffiti, it stopped being about the Troubles and it started being about this border in the Irish Sea, and people were very, very angry about this.
Of course, and I think, like you said, the worrying thing is that there is a flare-up of the Troubles.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of younger people not watching this, because no young people watch this, but
I'm barely concentrating.
Yeah, but there's people who don't remember how deeply awful those times were.
It is tough. You have to acknowledge the grievances on both sides of this conflict, as we always have, and in terms of Good Friday Agreement and the rest of it. You just have to find a way through it, and who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? But we do know that a united Ireland won't happen because of the Good Friday Agreement until they have the consent of the majority of people of Northern Ireland.
And that is the way that it should be. And there are many criticisms that could be made about Tony Blair. The fact that the Good Friday Agreement happened under his watch, it was a miracle.
We should say that John Major had an awful lot to do with that process as well, just to be fair and non-partisan. And it's true. Anyway, the Times now, and a bit of a catch-22 situation for unattractive women.
AKA hefty lefties. Loneliness prompts craving for cake. Loneliness prompts...
You're really pushing it to the edge.
I really am.
Hogan.
OK, let's be serious. Okay. Loneliness prompts craving for cake in women. Yeah, wedding cake. Researchers from UCLA in the US found that women who perceive themselves to be lonely show greater brain activity in areas associated with food cravings and a motivation to eat, especially when shown pictures of high-calorie food. So this is your Bridget Jones kind of archetype, the lonely woman who's just stuffing herself with ice cream and cake, and there is a scientific reason for it, apparently.
I'm sorry, this is not specific to women. I'm more than happy to plunge through a tub of Haagen-Dazs when feeling a bit Ms.
Yeah?
Oh,
really?
Yeah.
OK.
Are you kidding?
What flavour?
Yeah, what's your go-to?
It would be fish food. Oh, no, that's Ben & Jerry's.
Ben & Jerry's.
You see, sacrilegious.
Well, look, the point is, I think we have more in common. I admit that there are fundamental differences between men and women.
No.
I don't think an appetite for ice cream is one of them. And I think anyone who's feeling a bit down will reach for the spoons.
No, I disagree. You know what I do when I feel a bit down?
Go on.
I go for a nice walk. No, I have a toasted cheese sandwich.
Well, it's the same thing. I mean, it's calorific. It's full of carbs. That's going to turn to sugar.
True, it's carbs and fat.
Oh, but just a little bit of Liam Perrin sauce. Maybe put a bit of Parma ham in there.
You can't be depressed with Liam Perrin.
This is just a divisive article trying to shame women for eating cake.
Well, maybe they need shaming.
Well, I don't know about that. Let's move on now to...
Francis, please.
New evidence in the Telegraph now that fat people aren't just fat, they're actually big-gened.
Oh, come on. It's just one excuse after another. Put down the spoon chompers.
No, look at this data now. Tell us about the story.
Right. So, fat gene found, which makes adults 6 times more likely to be obese.
Right, but they're not just making that up, are they?
Probably. They're probably just people who are fat who are just trying to look for an excuse.
You know what they've called the fat gene? They've called it the bassoon. That's the funniest, chubbiest instrument there is.
Yeah.
That is definitely taking a dig at them, I think.
Yeah. So this is actually a very interesting article which shows that these people have this gene and it's related to appetite. So they don't get satiated when they eat. Hence, they eat more.
Yes.
And people who have this gene are, on average, 10 kilograms heavier than other people.
Francis?
But still, there's no excuse.
No, look. I understand what you're saying. I understand that for the most part, most people get fatter. You know, I get fatter if I eat more. I get it, right? And most people get fatter if they eat more. On the other hand, there are certain conditions. There are some people who have a naturally lower metabolism than others. That's been...
Go to the gym.
OK, but they would have to go to the gym twice as much.
Well, that's fine.
As other
go
people.
to the gym twice as much.
And also, those people who didn't have adequate athletic training as children don't have the muscle memory and they gain weight a lot quicker.
So
I know people. One of our producers here, Martin, he can't gain weight because he's got so much musculature from being, from running around as a child. He's pretty. Well, I wasn't told to run around as a child. I was told to sit down and eat, coleslaw. Right, and Jonathan.
Look, you've got a great bod, Andrew. But I mean, look,
don't talk about what happened the other night. We're not talking about that.
This story is irrelevant. We've already discovered the fat gene, and it's called the Giacomo Comfort Fit. There we go. We're here all night.
OK, we're going to move on now to this story in The Guardian. What's this one about, Jonathan? You got this?
In The Guardian, yes. NHS faces avalanche for... Sorry, so let's start again. This is ironic.
No, you made it sound like an actual avalanche.
NHS faces avalanche of demand for autism and ADHD services, think tank warm. So the Nuffield Trust have said the NHS is experiencing a huge demand over autism and attention deficit ADHD disorder, but the system is unable to cope with this. Now, there seems to be a massive influx of prospective patients looking to get diagnosed, but are not being able to because there's such a huge waiting list. A friend of mine says he's got ADHD, got diagnosed on TikTok, and basically he wants to get it treated, but there's like a 6-month wait, and he's going private.
Right, so the issue is twofold, I think. Right, firstly, is it the case that this is to do with the under-resourcing of the NHS, as usual? Is it to do with the fact that more people are, for whatever reason...
The internet.
Having ADHD and autism, and the rates are going up? Yep. Or, Francis, is it that we are in an over-diagnostic culture where people who actually don't have ADHD and they're just a bit unpleasant?
They're medicalising the boys.
Yeah,
the boys, right.
I think it is a combination of all of them, because nowadays, nobody wants to be normal. Nobody
I want to be normal.
No, well,
I am normal.
No, you're not normal. You're anything but normal.
Eat a coleslaw.
Yeah, exactly, and sit down. But nobody wants to be typical. Everybody wants to be some part of some oppressed group. Now, there are people who have ADHD, there are people who have autism, and these people need to be treated. But the reality is more and more people are getting diagnosed with it, and you go... How many of these people just find life a bit difficult, which it is, and they want something to explain that?
They want to be interesting. It's interesting you say that, actually, because a lot of the time when I see those sort of the activists with pronouns in their bio, they often also have neurodivergent in their bio, or autistic, or ADHD, or anything. So it's become like another identity category for a lot of people.
Absolutely, but you also see most comedians have ADHD or some degree of it.
I think most comedians just lack social skills, and we're just confusing the two.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's move on now. A sensitive story now in the Daily Mail. Francis, you've got this.
OK, well, yes. So this is a really sad story.
It's absolutely horrible.
Yeah. Depressed but physically healthy Dutch woman, she's only 28 years old, with borderline personality disorder. She also has autism. Says she will end her life by euthanasia next month because doctors say she will never get better.
Oh. What's going on here, Francis? There's been a few cases of euthanasia being pushed in Canada, being pushed by the government. They even produced an advert.
It's being marketed. That is insane. That is absolutely mad.
This is a woman who is completely physically healthy.
And she's in a relationship where she says she's very happy and in love with her partner.
And yet, because she suffers from depression and they say there's nothing we can do about this, the solution is suicide. This is, I don't think anyone who is perfectly physically healthy at the age of 28 should be even considering this. And why is the state...
Also, if she's incredibly mentally ill, as they're saying she is, can she actually consent to such a procedure?
Right.
If you're in that space, can you consent to...
Seriously, Francis, I worry about this. What about the sanctity of human life? Why is the state supporting this kind of thing?
I have no idea. I think it sets a very, very dangerous precedent. I do not like the fact that this woman, who obviously has very, very severe mental health problems, is effectively being encouraged to kill herself.
Yeah, because they're saying it's not going to get better. That's not what you tell people in that position.
And it might get better. There might be new treatments in 5 years' time.
We don't know.
And how do you know? Has she done everything? She's
done psychedelics.
Yeah, there's been a lot of research being done in Imperial College London that says actually psychedelic treatment can really help people with these types of conditions.
Well, I really hope it you know, it does get sorted and this horrible thing does not happen. But anyway, I'm sure we'll be covering that further. It's time now for our final break. Do join us on the other side for misogyny in rugby, Liz Hurley's extraordinary career choices and a bad haircut. Don't go to bed yet.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
Are our relationships with foreign countries actually undermining free speech on a day-to-day basis in our universities?
Well, it's very good to be with you. It's difficult to form a kind of clear conclusion because, as we know, universities are much, much more reliant on international fees than they used to be. We are seeing some sort of troubling developments, particularly at the level of admissions criteria. We're seeing quite stark and frankly scandalous disparities in the admissions criteria for domestic students as against foreign students in some universities. And so part of the problem is that the financial incentive structures are such that universities risk becoming more and more dependent upon foreign regimes because they're simply bringing in an awful lot more money.
James, of course, all of this discussion, we say countries. Frankly, mainly we're really looking at one country, aren't we? China.
Well, China is certainly a focus. I mean, nearly 1 in 3 undergraduate students from overseas at Russell Group universities were from China in 2021. 60% of overseas postgraduates come from China. We know from the FBI and the Five Eyes security chiefs that China is a master at intellectual property theft. And of course, there's a whole range of human rights issue concerns over Taiwan, Tibet, Uyghur Muslims, lockdown tyranny. I mean, all of these are issues about which, you know, researchers and academics should be free to teach and question. And in universities where there is a heavy commercial reliance on regimes like China, there are obvious disincentives to ensuring that academics and students are free to speak their mind on those issues.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
Our job is to do what's in the best interest of our country.
You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
I'm hearing it up and down the country. That was a beginning, not an end.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. It's your first look at Friday's newspapers. We're going to open this final section with The Telegraph now. A news of a grovelling apology for telling the truth. Francis.
Yes, so Britain's eating 50% more takeaways than before COVID.
Oh, OK. Oh,
that's what I've got here.
I think we've moved on to the next one, though.
Oh, have we moved on to the next one?
We've moved on to the World Rugby apology.
The World Rugby. My apologies, everyone. This show is live. OK.
Look at my trousers.
So, World Rugby issues grovelling apology for misogynistic guidelines on how to coach women.
Right.
So it's saying that men, they've gone and used 18-year-old research saying things like men use a fight-or-flight coping strategy in stressful situations, whilst women burst into tears.
OK. I mean, is that true?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They're crying all the time, mate.
They've actually got euthanasia guidelines for the most complaining rugby. Too soon?
Jonathan,
sorry.
Too soon.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Tell me about this, though, because why didn't they just use research that wasn't conducted 18 years ago?
Why? Because that would have made too much sense to use old-timey research.
OK.
Because everything has a slant to it now.
So is there a misogyny problem in rugby?
Well, there just seems to be a misogyny problem everywhere now.
There's certainly a misogyny problem on that couch.
What? With him?
With him?
Of course, he's a disgrace.
I've never even spoken to a woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Not even your girlfriend?
No, I didn't let her talk.
No.
Oh, no, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
There we go.
So,
oh, God.
but no, it's just an embarrassing gaffe. And you just think the people behind the PR, what are you doing?
I know.
Why are you doing this? And when we live in such overly sensitive times, why give people the chance to criticise you even more?
Absolutely. Well, we're going to stick with the Telegraph now. Jonathan, Liz Hurley. I didn't know she was from Norfolk.
Well, don't worry. In this story, there was Norfolking. That's fine. I checked with the producer. Liz Hurley felt comfortable filming sex scene directed by her son. This is a pretty hot story. So, a 22-year-old son, Damien, said he had brought his mother to make Strictly Confidential, his directorial debut, Sexier. Yeah, there was a sex scene in this film, no nudity.
A sex scene without nudity? What were they doing?
Well, I don't know. I'm not going to watch it. I think it's all under covers or something, or in like a gimp suit. I don't really know.
But your mother, it's a mother and a son.
It's weird. It's weird.
But if your mum was that hot, you would. You know what I mean?
Is Liz Hurley attractive?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she's absolutely gorgeous.
No, but she's not. She's a larger woman with the bracelets, with the.
No,
Who's Liz Hurley?
No, that's the girl from Asterix and Obelix.
No.
Well, who's Liz Hurley?
Liz Hurley.
What was she in?
Bedazzled.
Yeah, she was Hugh Grant's girlfriend in the 90s, and she had that very, very sexy Versace dress.
Oh, God, so I was thinking of Bella Remberg.
No, I don't even know who Bella Remberg is.
I'm sure it's a smart joke,
from the Russ Abbott show. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Right.
So OK, but the point is, though...
she feels comfortable.
Surely, if you're a director and you're filming a film with a sexual scene...
Yes.
...and your mother's in it...
Yeah.
Just get someone else to do the scene.
No, but his mum is really hot.
Yeah, but I'm sure he doesn't think that.
Well, he clearly does, mate. That's why he's done a sex scene with his mum.
What's weird was there was no tape in the camera and it wasn't actually a real film.
Yeah,
he just wanted to do the scene.
I mean, OK.
Good on you, mate. Well done.
I'm very disturbed by this story. Let's move on now to this story in the Daily Mail about Jonathan's last haircut.
Yes, exactly. Barber who charged £2 extra to cut the hair of special needs boys apologises and claims he had no idea it was offensive.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
So he put this sign up saying it's going to cost you an extra £2 for special needs boys.
Yeah.
But he didn't really understand the connotations of that. I think what he was saying is it takes longer for people who have special needs of all kinds.
Yeah.
Therefore, we charge an extra. He didn't mean we're just going to penalise people who've got learning disabilities. He didn't mean that.
Yeah, but, you know, here's the thing. If he did, if he didn't, the sign is outrageous.
Sure.
You know, it went viral.
Yeah, but I feel for him. OK, look, he says in this article, this is a direct quote, he says, I made a mistake and I fixed it. I'm only human. I'm not sure what more I can do.
Looks like he should be charged £2 more for his cuts.
I think he's got a point. Like, if you make a mistake, if you didn't quite understand the connotation... Look, it sounds stupid to us, but he didn't understand the connotations. He put that thing out there. He's apologised. What else can he do? Just leave the man alone.
He's had a close shave. Leave him be.
No, that's a terrible pun.
I don't get it.
Look, what he needs to do is he needs to sacrifice himself to the mob. Yeah. That's the only thing that works.
Because, of course, the mob are always easily satiated, aren't they?
Yeah, once you apologise,
they love an apology, don't they? They just leave you alone.
Yeah, they do. Just take a screenshot of a statement, put it up on your Twitter, pin it.
Yeah.
He should have to eat some hair.
Yeah.
And then forgive him.
Eat some hair.
And
OK.
then start grovelling.
Got to move on now. The Times, Jonathan, has tipping been abolished?
Has tipping been abolished? No. If anything, it's getting more proper because the actual staff are going to be being paid. But we'll get to that. London restaurant chain bans tipping but adds 15% brand fee to bill.
Well, isn't that just tipping?
Well, not really, because none of the staff get it, just the owners. So
basically you're just tipping the company?
Yes, but
this is wrong.
Tipping is for service, right? This isn't even for service. This is just for being in the building.
Right.
So the restaurant is called Ping Pong, which sounds very racist, which is a dim sum franchise.
Mixed with table tennis.
Mixed with table tennis. Yeah, and this is due to new legislation. So this is just an unintended consequence of a small business reacting to new legislation, and we're going to see all different kind of iterations of this. That is a smart thing I've said all day.
It's very smart. But I used to serve food, and the tips were important because I was poor.
Yeah, but these guys have got rid of it. No.
Yeah, but what about the staff? What about the workers?
No, they should be getting the tips.
Right, Francis, very quickly, what's your views?
Look, the staff should be getting the tips. This just seems like another company finding another revenue stream to cream off profits, when the reality is people working in this industry need and rely on tips.
Absolutely. Just go to a different table tennis shop.
Yeah.
What a
Okay,
racket.
the show is nearly over now. Let's take another look at Friday's front pages. So the Daily Mail is leading with the big story of the day. Top Tory, I gave MP's numbers to sex sting plotter. The Times has the same story there. The Guardian is running with Biden demands Gaza ceasefire in strongest rebuke yet to Israel. And the front cover of the Express on Friday has, make no mistake, migrant flights soon to take off soon, pledges Rishi Sunak. The iNews, Sunak urged to publish legal advice on arms sales to Israel. And finally, the Daily Star, what time is it on the moon? Those were your front pages. That's all we've got time for. Thanks to my guests, Jonathan Cogan and Francis Foster. Nick Dixon's going to be here tomorrow with Josh and Cressida. And if you're watching the 5 a.m. repeat, please stay tuned because now it's time for breakfast.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again. It's a wet night for many of us with spells of rain crossing the country, staying cold in the north, and as those spells of rain move north, well, we'll see some hill snow across